Mike McDaniel, coach of the Dolphins, meeting with reporters on Monday with a disclosure that no one really expected from the team's head coach. Here he is.
Also placed Tua in the concussion protocol. I'm not totally sure. This is something that just came across my plate a couple hours ago. As far as the game was concerned, there was no one recognized anything with regard to any sort of hit. I can't really tell you exactly when it was. I'm not totally positive on that, but it was something that he met with the doctors today and discussed some symptoms, and they from that as you guys know, from there on, that's between Tua and the doctors, and we'll move forward as information is projected towards us.
This is fascinating to me on one specific level. And we've got a lot to unpack here because this has been an ongoing theme throughout the season. It had subsided for weeks ever since Tua returned from the concussion he clearly had against the Bengals 4 days after the one he may have had, although the team and Tua continues to insist he didn't, against the Bills. That moment in late September sparked a closer scrutiny of the treatment of, recognition of head injuries in the NFL. And I think an acceptance, there's only so much you can do in real time to fully spot it. And I'm not saying it's okay. I think we just accept the fact now that there are imperfections. And do they need to be ironed out? Yes, but there still are imperfections. But let's start with the hit.
Yeah, I saw it.
I don't expect Mike McDaniel to see everything when he's on the sideline trying to coach the team. But you got people all over the place watching these games, and you've got a guy who has had one, maybe two concussions this year. Both of them happened when his head struck the turf. Here it is, with under 3 minutes to play in the second quarter. His head hits the ground again. Now, he's away from the ball at the time, but you still have people everywhere watching this. And folks on social media had clipped the video and posted it on Christmas Day.
Yeah.
Not long after the game ended, if not during the game of this moment. People saw it. So that's the hit, Mike McDaniel. You may have been busy coaching the team. You may have been thinking about what's my next play here on second down after this pass is thrown, and you may not have just seen that, boom, that happened. But, Chris, you texted yesterday. You saw it when it happened. People did notice it, but nobody charged with watching these things. We've seen the imperfections of the spotter function. We saw it with Devontae Parker a few weeks ago, even though they issued a statement late last week. I think it was a December 23 Friday bad news dump by the league, circling the wagons and making excuses for the spotters who missed the Devontae Parker ataxia, the new buzzword. I'd like to know why no one from the Dolphins at any level, in any shape or form, intervened after his head struck the turf and decided maybe we should just, give this guy an evaluation.
Right.
How long does it take to take a look at him and talk to him? So that's troubling to me. Given his history, we're going to treat these guys as patients, not players. His history would suggest you see his head hit the ground, you should at least take a look at him and make sure he's okay.
Yeah, it's kind of shocking. I mean, I think when you're saying it right, the history, the player, Tua, I mean, he's so popular in the NFL, one of the leaders in the Pro Bowl voting. This was a huge story. It's a standalone game on Christmas Day, right? I'm there as soon as it happened. Producer Matt Casey, who is our friend and our workmate, we right away went, ooh, because we recognize that's the same type of way, like you discussed. It's how he got the concussion, against the Buffalo Bills originally, and then the Cincinnati Bengals, right?
Yes.
So.
And again, you got to be careful because they get mad if you say he had a concussion. He didn't have a concussion. He had a back injury. Although anyone with a brain, anyone with a brain and eyes and can see that knew that it was a head injury. But no, it wasn't.
Right. Yeah.
Here it is. Back in late September.
He hurt his back and his ankle here because his brain wasn't working. So that's why. I mean, that's what happened right there. My brain doesn't work, so my back and ankle gave out. Oh, now my back and ankle are hurt. Oh, yeah, it's a back and ankle injury. Sure it is. Okay, so either way, that's long gone. but that's surprising, right? I mean, that's where you said it right, Mike. I mean, it's just such a popular player who has a history, and I don't sit here and blame Mike McDaniel at all. Again, we had this discussion right the first time around. When they start to pay him to be the doctor of the team too, then I'll start to hold him accountable. But hey, he's calling a play. He's watching the ball down the field. As soon as the guy gets tackled, he's 21 personnel, blah 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 blah. I mean, it's not his job to look back at the quarterback and evaluate how he hit the ground after he threw the football. You said it right. We got people. We're the NFL. We got people in place to look at this. And how do you not recognize that, to me, is a little shocking. There's no doubt.
Now, I will say this. There's a difference between Mike McDaniel not noticing it as it happened and nobody mentioning to Mike McDaniel. Is it possible the organization just still didn't know at the moment McDaniel told the world about the concussion? We don't know when it happened. I mean, it's okay for him to have not seen it. It's not okay by the time he's telling the world about it.
Yeah, I hear you there.
No one in the organization has figured it out and said to him, I think it was 2 minutes and 37 seconds or thereabouts in quarter number 2 when his head struck the ground. And Warren Sharp posted something
I think they're chicken there, Mike. That's all I'm saying. I think they're scared to admit that it was in that they don't want to say it.
It's a bad look. It's a bad look.
Right.
It's a bad look that nobody evaluated him then, and we're 2 minutes from halftime. Remember the whole Cameron Brate thing where he clearly struck his head into the chest of a teammate and was allowed to return to the game and wasn't evaluated until halftime of the game. That's when they spotted it then because they noticed symptoms from Cameron Brate. That was something that was in the aftermath of the Tua situation back in late September, early October. I think it was the week 4. Yeah, it was the Sunday night game between the Chiefs and the Bucs. That's when that happened. And it was obvious. It was obvious. And they gave us this song and dance at the time. All the spotters thought that his shoulder hit the teammate, not his head. Well, the spotters need to get their eyes checked, frankly, if that's what they think. So these spotters, I don't get it with these spotters. There's 2 of them. And, the Devontae Parker thing was all about, well, one was doing something else. And look, this stuff's inexcusable. And to me, I'm channeling John Madden, who died a year ago tomorrow. He would get livid when he saw these failures after he was retired, but he was still consulting with the NFL. And his attitude was, if the people that we have hired to do these jobs cannot do them effectively, fire them and get other people to do these jobs. It's too important to have anything other than somebody who is completely committed and conscientious and capable of doing this job, period. If we're trying to protect these guys, and supposedly we are, it's not just window dressing and BS. We're really trying to protect them. This isn't acceptable. And Tua Tagovailoa striking his head is not acceptable. Now, Chris, here's the next question. Because it wasn't specified by McDaniel.
Yeah.
Who started this process? Did they go to
Sounds like Tua did.
Tua? Or did Tua go to them?
Sounds like Tua did, just the way they laid it out. Right.
Yeah, but they did. But it's possible. It's possible. And again, we don't get a ton of transparency with this. Oh, yeah, they're trying to tell us they don't know when it happened. What if they're watching the film after? And I was mentioning this earlier. Warren Sharp pointed out that before the concussion happened, or concussion protocol, because we're in this mindset now. It happened with Matthew Stafford a few weeks ago. Well, he's in the concussion protocol, but he didn't have a concussion. But he's in the concussion protocol. Okay, fine. But he's in the concussion protocol. We'll accept that. If you don't want to say he has a concussion, I don't get it. But before whatever it is that caused him to be in the protocol, if this is the hit, if that's the moment, the one we've shown, he was 9 for 12 for 229 yards, 19.1 yards per attempt. 1 touchdown, no picks, 19.1 yards per attempt.
Yeah.
Before the hit. After the hit, 7 for 13, 81 yards, 6.2 yards per attempt, no touchdowns and 3 interceptions on consecutive drives in the fourth quarter. So maybe they were watching film yesterday, breaking it down, studying it. Are we sure he was okay after that? He said after the game that there was a misread or a miscommunication or something. Was he really thinking straight? And oh, hey, there's this play where his head hit the ground, or hey, well, don't talk about that yet. Oh, let's not talk about that publicly yet. Whatever. I just feel like there may have been some institutional conversations that got the doctors to go talk to Tua.
I wouldn't be shocked by that.
Coming forward, because I don't think Tua's wired to do it. Quarterbacks and players and guys who's, other than Ben Roethlisberger, the only guy to ever do it. I remember when he did it 7-8 years ago. Everyone was like, oh, the culture of the National Football League has changed. No, it hasn't. Ben's just a guy who's sufficiently comfortable with his status that he can do it because he's not worried about losing his job. He's not worried about being Wally pipped. Tua is, and most guys are. You don't want to step aside from your job and give someone else a chance to do it because if they do it well enough, you're done. You're gone. It's over, especially if you've developed a reputation for being a guy that gets too many concussions.
Yeah, that's right. Especially if you love the sport.
No, we're going to play the guy that doesn't have that.
Right. If you love the sport, you're a competitor. You might not want to just say it. You don't want to say it. You don't want to go, well, gosh, I'm going to tell them I have another concussion. It's my third in the year. Oh, man. I mean, now we're getting to a point where it's starting to – we're keeping a meter on how many concussions I've had, which means when we're starting to keep, track, it means that it's too many. And that means too many, a few more that you're not going to be playing football. So you're going to get guys to be reluctant at times. Yeah, hopefully you get guys that recognize the danger in it too and will come forward. But, to your point, more times than not, no. These are guys that this is their livelihood. This is what they love to do. And they don't want to hear that type of stuff. It's almost ignorance is bliss in this conversation to a degree. And, Mike, I'm with you. I mean, film or social media, that was where my mind went originally. That somebody – hey, there's some clips on social media where people think this play, Tua might have hurt his head. And that put that on the radar for them to then, look at it closer when they got in the building Monday morning to go through film. I wouldn't be shocked if it kind of went down that way either. But, yeah, it'd be interesting to know the process and how it totally unfolded. And, I mean, Dolphins are this is one of the biggest stories in the sport. It's Tua. The Dolphins themselves are one of the biggest stories in the sport. I mean, what we're seeing right now, we all thought, ooh, man, they're dangerous, and if they get in the AFC playoffs, watch out. Now they're on the outside looking in. I mean, this is kind of unbelievable how it's all unfolding in front of us right now.
I think they're still barely hanging on to the last spot at 8-7, but barely.
You might
and
be
now
right.
If they don't
they are.
Tua,
You're right. They're at 8-7.
4 in a row. They were 8-3.
Right.
They were 8-3, and they've lost 4 in a row. And I actually bumped them up in the power rankings last week. We were so impressed by what they did in Buffalo, even in defeat for their third straight game. It was this game against the Packers that makes people view them differently. But I like your theory that they came in yesterday and somebody in the organization spotted the video on social media.
Yeah.
And that sparked a discussion, a conversation, and ultimately a decision to approach Tua and evaluate him where he was never going to come forward and say, I'm not feeling right. But you know what? If that's true, then that means Mike McDaniel wasn't being honest, and I don't want to go there because I think he's an honest guy. I think he's too authentic and transparent and real to stand up there and lie to us. I just don't know. And maybe he
doesn't know all the exact details of how the conversation unfolded yet. I don't know. You're right, though. He wouldn't be one to lie, and especially when they got almost in trouble the first time where they don't want to be caught here and have it affect them. I would be shocked if Mike McDaniel lied about that.
Well, the other explanation is nobody's bothered to tell him that they found this video of Tua hitting his head. Maybe they're afraid. Maybe they know that if they tell him head struck turf late second quarter, nobody saw it or did anything about it, he'll lose his mind on them. And he'll be mad. Maybe that's the explanation, that they're treading lightly around him because he's made it clear he doesn't mess around with this stuff, and he will be upset with anyone who may have failed in their responsibility to notify someone when they saw the head strike the ground and recognize the history of the player, the history of the patient. That was the big takeaway from the NFLPA's reaction the last time around. They want the players to be treated as patients, not players. So if you have this specific history and your head hits the ground, at a minimum, we're going to take 5 minutes at halftime and make sure you are okay. And I don't get the impression anyone bothered to do that at any point on Sunday. Here's McDaniel talking about whether and to what extent he is worried about Tua having had multiple head injuries this season. Here he is.
I just want guys to really be done right by the information we have, the science, all the medical, really all the medical expertise that we rely on. I care very deeply about each and every player. I take that serious. So, I just want him to get healthy and have peace of mind in that regard. And that's first and foremost. And then, whatever those circumstances are after, you deal with after. But it's about the human being and making sure he's squared away.
See, I think it's entirely possible that they did tread lightly around McDaniel, because McDaniel's attitude, I would expect, is something like this. I'm not the doctor. I defer to the doctors.
That's right.
I defer to the experts. I'm just the coach of the team, but I expect you all to do your job the same way everybody else expects me to do my job. And if you mean to tell me that this guy's head struck the turf and nobody noticed it and nobody said anything about it and we just went about our business and we learned about it from social media,
yeah,
please, I don't want to hear that crap. And so maybe that's why he doesn't know, because they know that he will be very upset if they do tell him that's how they found out about it, and that's what sparked someone to go talk to Tua. And lo and behold, he has the symptoms of a guy who has suffered a concussion, now that we bother to take the time to actually evaluate him. So
I wouldn't be shocked.
It's a bad situation all around.
Yeah.
Bad situation all around.
Right. No, I wouldn't be shocked, Mike. I mean, we've seen McDaniel on the sideline in a bunch of social media videos, right, where he's, hey, get that effing fixed right now, right? I mean, he's not afraid to go, what the F are we doing? Or it's my fault, my bad on that play call. I mean, he is a guy that owns it. And to the point here, again, of where it can be troubling to a head coach is, yeah, I'd like doctors and spotters and all that to do your job. So therefore, as a team, we can do our job and assess the situation a little bit. And maybe then I mean, again, they might have lost a competitive advantage here because Tua was not himself in the second half. I mean, again, you can certainly, connect the dots there a little bit to go, wait. I mean, a guy who's been pretty good with the football and had a real good year have made 3 decisions in a row where you just go like, this is insane. I mean, this throw, the decision, everything about it's insane. It's late. This one's kind of insane too. I know he misread the coverage. The guy's not even looking. He just throws it. He doesn't see the middle linebacker. And then the last one's the worst of all. I mean, it's basic rules. This is probably one of the first plays he learned. You throw to that guy underneath until they take it away. The corner stayed back. You never throw this, let alone the ball was still 6 or 7 yards short. So those are some things that line up to go, yeah, maybe he wasn't quite all there and all that and his defense. And if I'm the head coach, I'm pissed about that because I'm going, that was a big freaking game. And I maybe would have liked to have gone into halftime knowing that and getting Teddy Bridgewater ready and getting him going there. And I think that's where you can be also mad, as far as the competitive part of this whole process.
And that's what makes this different from the normal situation, because usually what happens is we gloss over the potential head injury and the guy keeps going productively and effectively.
Yeah,
remember Super
right.
Bowl 49, there was the question, Julian Edelman, should he be in? Should he be checked?
Right.
And the guy keeps playing, and he keeps playing well.
Yeah.
We haven't had a situation in this, because it's still a relatively small sample size. The number of times this happens, the number of years the NFL has been ultra-sensitive to it, there aren't a ton of these data points.
Yeah, we're in the beginning.
This is the first time where guy wasn't checked, guy was left in game, and quite possibly it bit the team that left him in the game.
Right.
That he did suffer a dramatic drop because no one said we should check him out and we should shut him down. And they could have won that game with Teddy Bridgewater. You take those 3 interceptions away, and maybe they do win the game. You put Teddy out there for the whole second half, maybe they do win the game. And that shouldn't matter at all to the analysis. But the point is the organizational failure to notice the hit and do anything about it actually bit the organization in the ass.
Yeah, that's the
by
point.
Putting a potentially impaired player out there for the second half of the game.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And then, that's where I think a coach would be certainly mad. I mean, there's a spotlight on this process already, and especially with this football team and the way they kind of bungled the first back ankle issue. Okay, yeah, right, let's throw the progressive red flag and challenge that and go back to the videotape. But, yeah, there's that. And then, of course, they have a viable backup and a guy that, in a game where really – it felt you were there, you were watching, Mike. It felt like Miami was this close to blowing them out like a few times in the game, and that it was going to take like monumental Miami mistakes for them to lose the game. And there you got the guy who banged his head, who's made the monumental mistakes, and he hadn't made those mistakes. So I do think it's fair to wonder, if there was issues there. I do, and from that standpoint, if I'm Mike McDaniel, I'm pissed about that too, because we paid Teddy Bridgewater a lot of money to be a backup and come in those situations and help us out.
Now, I want to address another dynamic that's popped up in the aftermath of this. A lot of the voices in the NFL media have chimed in with something along the lines of Tua should not play again this year. Period. And I don't know that helps the situation at all. Because, first of all, why? If he recovers from this and is cleared by the appropriate protocols and processes, why would he not play?
Right.
He's a football player.
Right.
How long do you extend this? Are you saying he should never play again? It's one thing to say we think he's had too many and he should never play again. Okay? But to say he should just take the rest of the year off and never play again this year, I don't know how that helps anyone or anything. I don't know what science, medicine, common sense that's rooted in. It's just kind of like, hey, we're exhausted with this topic. Do us a favor and put him on the sideline for the rest of the year so we don't have to wrestle with this, so we don't have to talk about this. I think once he's cleared properly, appropriately, and effectively cleared to play, why wouldn't he play again if that's what he wants to do this season? It's a different issue as to whether he should ever play again given the head injuries he suffered. And I think back to what Chris Collinsworth said that first game he came back, the Sunday nighter against Pittsburgh. He asked Tua in one of the production meetings if Tua's parents want him to keep playing, and he said, I don't know. He may be getting some pressure from family members to step away. But that's different from just this weird broad brush, he shouldn't play again this season. I'd be less uncomfortable with he should never play again at all than I am with he should never play again this season. Because, again, if he's cleared, what difference does it make whether it's this season or next season? If he's cleared and he wants to play, he should play. If we're going to talk about should he never play again, that to me is a more reasonable conversation than just shutting him down for the rest of the year.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of context into this situation that's, needs to be unpacked, and it's not necessarily, I'm not a doctor. I think the first thing I would say is just that it does seem like there's the knowledge out there, again, that, hey, the brain being bruised as it is in a concussion process, that, hey, the more time, the merrier as far as letting it heal and having something pop up, again, maybe quite as quickly or with lack of a big-time hit to the head. I mean, it seems to be that's out there. I don't know that exact science, Mike. I'm not sure there. And also, too, there's the thought of, again, I don't want to sound insensitive, but the severity of the concussion would certainly be a part of the conversation for me. Again, the bell rung was just the bell rung forever until like 3 years ago, which was, now it's the concussion and you're in the protocol. But we got a lot of people in football, myself included, where I got up a few times and saw 3, And it's like, Mick said, hit the one in the middle. Okay, there's the one in the middle. Well, I mean, in today's day, I'd be in concussion protocol probably. Then I would just go, oh, man, I got hit in the head. Doctor going, you okay? Yeah, I'm okay. Gosh, it kind of knocked me out for a loop for a second, but I'm okay. I mean, that's how it went back in that day, let alone even worse than my father's day or Terry Bradshaw's day. So I do think the severity of the concussion when you're talking about season ending or career ending is got to be a part of the conversation as well.
Well, I think part of it is PR. Remember when he had the concussion against the Bengals? He was cleared to return for the game against the Vikings, but they still didn't play him. And I think that's part of what creeps into this. Just the idea, we screwed this up again. Another bad look for the organization. We're just not going to play him again this year because we can't take any more of these bad looks. We don't want to put ourselves in a position where we screw this up again. We've had enough. And you wonder what kind of pressure they may be getting from the league to shut him down for the rest of the year. It doesn't make sense from a medicine and science standpoint. If he's cleared, he's cleared.
Right.
If he's passed all the steps to come back, there's very careful analysis, 5 levels, more and more exercise and constant monitoring by the independent neurological consultant and the team doctor, and you do a little bit more and you do a little bit more, and are you okay? Yeah, he's okay. He's better, he's fine, he's healed. Okay, he's cleared. Well, maybe he's not. Maybe we just don't want to put him back in harm's way given what happened the last time. And that to me is when the question of should he ever play again becomes more relevant than should he not play again this year. And this is the first guy in this relatively limited sample size of concussions and being cleared to return. The first quarterback. Javid Best was the first guy that just kind of got to the point where nobody's going to clear this guy to ever play again, given his history of concussions. And that's ultimately the thing that it doesn't matter if Tua's parents want him to play, if anyone else close to him wants him to play, and he just gives in and says, I'm not going to play, I'm going to step away from my chosen profession, and, I'm 25, 26 years old, what am I going to do with the rest of my life? I want to play football until I lack my physical skills and can't do it anymore. Well, okay, I'll agree with you and not play. That's different from not being able to find a doctor anywhere that will sign the paperwork. We went through this with Mike White. He went to 10 different doctors trying to get somebody to say, I'll clear you to play with a rib that may snap off and puncture your lung. And he couldn't find anyone to do it. That's the dynamic that we need to consider now and moving forward with Tua as he finishes the 3rd year of his career. How long until he can't get cleared by anyone to play? That, to me, is a more relevant question than should he or should he choose to step aside. There's going to be a point where it's not going to be his choice, Chris.
Yeah.
There's going to be a point where he just won't find anyone that says, I'm putting my name and my reputation on this piece of paper that says Tua Tagovailoa is cleared to play.
Yeah, listen, I think that's a real possibility. You got to be worried about that if you're Tua, if you're the Dolphins. I do. I hope, again, it's about the information and the testing and the evaluation of the brain and not necessarily the number of concussions. Because like we've said, I mean, you're in concussion protocol now if you just, for some reason, hey, the spotter who failed in this instance sees anything at times. We see guys go, man, they're in the concussion protocol. And I hear from coaches and players all the time where, it can be a little annoying because a guy's like, I'm totally fine. I didn't even get hit in the head, but they get thrown out of the game. So there's got to be that balance there. But then also, I think to the point, Mike, we're talking here too is, again, I go back to Tua and his size, the size of the human being once again. Again, that does not happen to Josh Allen or Joe Burrow or Patrick Mahomes, where they just get tackled at the feet and they can't control their head and their neck from hitting the ground, because they're bigger humans. They're able to control that force there. And, I just worry about that with Tua in general. That was a talk. He's a smaller human being. He's As the announcer said during the game the other day, he's not terribly elusive either. He's quick in hopping around the pocket. He's not very fast. And, man, now you're playing the Patriots, who got a good pass rush and a lot of big dudes, and then you got the Jets the next week after that. That's where I think about Tua the human being and worry about him a little going forward.
I said this in the aftermath of the hit that he took against the Bengals. The physics are not in his favor.
No.
So you have to do different things to avoid putting yourself in a position where a guy can swing you around and throw your head onto the ground, or just routine pull you down and your head snaps and hits the ground.
Right.
Drew Brees never had that happen to him because he knew, I've got to get rid of this football before I'm ever in a position where one of these guys who is so much larger than me will start to manipulate my body in a way that may cause me to hit the ground hard and hit my head hard. And Tua, to his credit, he's fearless. He's fearless to the point where he has put himself unnecessarily in harm's way. And that may be the great irony here. The guy is so courageous and he plays with such a reckless abandon that he may be abandoned by any doctor ultimately that would be in a position to say he's allowed to continue to play. And I think at some point the NFL, the giant football machine made up of constantly interchangeable parts, will, for its own best interests, pull Tua out and set him aside. If we're going to be sensitive to head injuries, we need guys who aren't sensitive to head injuries. We need guys that don't have a bunch of concussions. We just can't do that because that makes everybody, I hate to say this, but that's kind of the mindset, right? If we have a guy that keeps getting concussions and keeps making this a talking point and keeps being the center of this, that's what when Tua was interviewed by Maria Taylor, he's very uncomfortable with it because I think he understands at a certain point it becomes a scarlet letter.
Right.
And they're just not going to want you in the league. They're not going to want you on the Dolphins. They're not going to want you on any team because we got to worry about the next Tua concussion.
Right.
And we'd rather have guys play that we never have that conversation, even if they are just expertly hiding the symptoms or whatever the case may be, grabbing their knee instead of their head. We know all that stuff happens. But the point is, once you start getting flagged, you do get that scarlet letter. You do get that stigma. You do create an issue, a complication, an unfortunate inconvenience for the league that puts you at risk of the same collective mindset that we've seen apply to others. The league, the machine, the 31 independent businesses that is held together under the shield, under Big Shield, under that umbrella, they shy away from certain people for certain reasons. Legal, PR, whatever the case may be. That's the concern I'd have as well, that at some point that machine that is the NFL is just going to say, we can't do it. We can't let this guy be part of it.
Yeah, I agreed. It's I think it's something that is going to be on radar. My history in the NFL, there's two of course nobody in the NFL likes injury history, right? So anytime there's a player that's got any injury history, it's concerning to a football team. But it goes to another level with two injuries. When anything there's neck or head, and it's a little bit, there's too much or there's a little worry there, you get put in the black book or for lack of a better phrase, blackballed in the NFL as far as teams just don't want to take the risk of having to deal with that story and the repercussions of what could happen there. So that's where it's interesting. And I do wonder, Mike, too, are we going to hit the point here one day where, like you just talked about with Tua, they're going to play Minnesota. He's cleared, right? But they keep him out just because of the optics of the situation. When is that going to happen? Like, that I could see that being a problem at some point, too. A team going to a player and going, hey, you're cleared, but we'd like you to sit out another week. It'll only be a matter of time before a player goes, no, I was cleared and I'm playing. It's my life. Be quiet. But this is a sensitive subject, and I think it's something that the NFL is going to have to continue to dive into and get details, and we'll see where this goes with Tua. This is very interesting with such a big game on the horizon this weekend against the Patriots.
I'll be stunned if he plays this weekend against the Patriots, and I'll be stunned if he plays in Week 18. And at this point, if they don't have him, I think that's going to be part of it. I think that it's just too much. If you're one of the 32 owners, we have to remember how this business works. The commissioner works for the 32 owners, and there's a handful of them that call the shots. And you get to a point where you're like, this season, on one hand, we've been able to stick our chests out and talk about all the close games and the fourth quarter comebacks. It's been exciting. It's a great time for the National Football League. We're 2 years removed from the pandemic. Everybody's making money. But, we got to deal with this. This Tua thing keeps popping up. This isn't good for anybody. Let's get Steve Ross on the phone here and make sure he understands the way it's got to be. Here's the way it's got to be, Steve. I'm sorry. I know you wanted to make the playoffs this year, but the collective interests of the game are bigger than that. It's going to drag us down if this Tua thing continues to be something that idiots like Florio and Simms talk about for the first 40 minutes of their show. We'd rather them talk about football games. We'd rather them talk about exciting comebacks. We'd rather them talk about anything but this. How is that not part of the conversation when you get behind closed doors? We know in any business, the conversations that happen behind closed doors are a hell of a lot different than the ones that happen out in the open. How is that not the most obvious conversation? The impact of this constant Tua drama on our business in a negative way. And I feel bad for Tua. And this is why players don't come forward with their symptoms, because that's the end game. If you're causing these issues excessively, and if you become the guy who is identified with it and you keep having these concussions, it is just a matter of time before they're done with you. It is just a matter of time before they say, we're not clearing you or we're not keeping you. There's just no place for you at this table because you are the guy who keeps suffering these head injuries that's dragging down the whole sport. And I'm not saying that's right. I'm just saying that's real. And those are actual considerations that the folks who run the sport are going to have. How could they not?
Agreed, Mike. I'm with you there all the way. They got to protect the sport, protect the shield at the very least. And yeah, this is a huge subject. In households with children playing football everywhere is the protection of the brain and the head. And this is a quarterback that has a following of little kids and we see he's got a mafia in the social media. It's a mafia. You can't say anything about him. You can't. And they just absolutely attack you and tear you apart. And they don't want to hear it. So that in itself, this is a quarterback with a huge following, and it's a sensitive subject, and it's one that's already got a spotlight on it, and now there's two spotlights on it, so they got to be careful.
Yes, absolutely. We'll continue to follow this story as it develops, but I'll be surprised if we see him again this year. And that's not me saying he shouldn't play again this year. I think the broader question is, should he ever play again? But if he's cleared, he should play. I have a feeling they're not going to clear him for reasons other than whether or not he is in a position where he can and should be cleared. Hi, it's Mike Florio. Thanks for watching PFT on YouTube. Hit subscribe for the latest news and analysis from Pro Football Talk.